The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species in known space. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls curved in a perfect circle, lined with seats for representatives from over 200 different alien races. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassador stood at the center platform, his tall insect-like body casting a long shadow across the polished floor. He belonged to the collective, a species that looked like giant mantises with hard shells and large compound eyes that could see in almost every direction at once. His kind had been part of the council for 3,000 years. They considered themselves wise. They considered themselves fair. Today felt something else entirely. Today he felt afraid. But he hid his fear behind anger. "Fellow members of the council," he announced, his voice clicking and buzzing through the translator device attached to his chest. "I have called this emergency meeting because of a matter most serious, a matter of blood, a matter of death, a matter of humanity." The word humanity sent whispers through the crowd. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made contact with other species 40 years ago. In that short time, they had spread across dozens of worlds, built colonies, joined trade networks, and sent their soldiers to serve in peacekeeping missions throughout the outer territories. Most species did not know what to make of them. They were soft, with no claws or shells or venom. They could not see in the dark like the. They could not breathe underwater like the. They could not communicate through thought like the. And yet, something about humans made other species nervous. Intended to show everyone why. 3 rotations ago, he continued, on the border world called Seven, a human soldier encountered a patrol unit of 12 warriors. These were not criminals. These were not rebels. These were legitimate soldiers of our collective, conducting standard security operations in a conflict zone. He paused to let his words sink in. That human killed all 12 of them. The whispers grew louder. Some species gasped. Others leaned forward in their seats. The representative, a creature that looked like a blue octopus in a water-filled suit, raised one tentacle. "One human against 12 trained soldiers," they asked. "Surely you exaggerate, Ambassador." "I do not exaggerate. I have proof," gestured with one of his sharp front limbs. "I have footage captured by the helmet camera of our patrol leader. I intend to show it to this council so that everyone may see what humans truly are." High Arbiter shifted in her elevated seat at the head of the chamber. She was ancient, even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her body was covered in silver feathers that had once been golden. Her eyes, large and yellow like an owl's, had watched empires rise and fall. She had seen 100 species join the council and a dozen leave it. She had seen wars and peace and everything in between. "You may show your evidence, Ambassador," she said. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the massive hall. Touched a control on his platform. The air above him shimmered, and then a holographic display came to life, large enough for everyone to see. The image showed a dirt road. The sky was gray with smoke. In the distance, buildings were burning. The camera was moving, attached to someone walking forward. Around the edges of the display, 11 other figures were visible, all of them soldiers in combat armor, all of them carrying weapons. And ahead of them, walking toward them, was a human. He was not a large human. He stood at average height with black hair cut short and a face covered in dust and dried blood. His clothes were torn. His left arm hung in a strange position, wrapped around something pressed against his chest. He walked slowly but steadily, showing no fear. "Pause," commanded High Arbiter. She leaned forward, her feathered crest rising with interest. "What is the human carrying?" His compound eyes gleamed with something like triumph. "That High Arbiter is a cub, a child of our species, no more than 4 cycles old. The human was using her as a shield." The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives from dozens of species shouted their outrage. Some demanded the footage be stopped. Others demanded it continue. The delegate, A creature covered in thick white fur with ears like a fox barked something about barbarism. The mechanical representative of the AI collective simply observed, recording everything for later analysis. Raised one feathered hand, silence fell. "Continue the footage," she ordered. The hologram resumed. The camera moved closer to the human. Now everyone could see the child more clearly. She was small, her body covered in soft plates that had not yet hardened into adult armor. Her compound eyes were huge in her small face. She was clinging to the human's jacket with her tiny claws, her face pressed against his chest. "Halt," commanded the voice of the patrol leader through the footage. "Human, you are ordered to halt and surrender." The human stopped walking. He looked at the soldiers. Then he looked down at the child in his arms. His face changed. It became softer for just a moment as he adjusted his grip on her, making sure she was secure. "I'm taking this child to the refugee camp," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. "6 kilometers north. You can escort us if you want, but I'm not stopping." "You will surrender the child and submit to questioning," the patrol leader replied. "This is not a request." "She's scared," the human said. "She's been through enough. I'm not handing her over to people pointing guns at her." "We are not pointing guns at her. We are pointing guns at you." "Same thing." The human started walking again. "She doesn't know the difference. All she knows is loud noises and weapons and people dying. I'm not adding to that." The patrol leader's voice grew harsh. "You are using a child as a shield. This is a war crime under galactic law." The human laughed. It was not a happy sound. "A shield." He held up the child slightly, and for a moment the camera caught her face clearly. Her eyes were closed. She was trembling. "Does this look like a shield to you? She weighs almost nothing. She wouldn't stop a single shot. If you fire at me, you'll kill her too." "Then surrender." "No," the human kept walking. "Because I don't trust you. I don't know which side you're on. I don't know if you're regular soldiers or if you're with the faction that burned down her village and killed her parents. So I'm going to keep walking, and I'm going to get her somewhere safe, and you can either help me or get out of my way." The patrol leader raised his weapon. Around him, the other 11 soldiers did the same. 12 guns pointed at one human and one child. "Final warning," the patrol leader said. The human stopped. He looked at the soldiers for a long moment. Then he looked down at the child in his arms and whispered something too soft for the camera to catch. He adjusted his grip on her one more time, tucking her head under his chin, wrapping his left arm completely around her small body. Then his right hand moved to his belt and drew a knife. "Okay," he said quietly, "let's do this." The footage continued to play. The council chamber watched in silence. And in the next 14 seconds, everything that the galaxy thought they knew about humans was about to change forever. 3 days before the footage was recorded, Corporal Park had been eating breakfast in the mess hall of Outpost 7. The outpost was small, just a collection of metal buildings surrounded by a fence, sitting at the edge of a settlement called New. The settlement had been built by human refugees who had fled the inner worlds during the resource wars. They had come to 7 looking for peace. They had found something unexpected instead. They had found neighbors. The civilians who lived in the area had also fled from conflict. Their homes had been destroyed in a civil war that had split their species into factions. One faction believed in working with other species. The other faction believed that they should remain pure, separate, superior. The civil war had raged for decades, and the refugees who came to 7 were the ones who just wanted it to stop. So humans and had built their homes side by side. They had learned each other's languages. Their children had played together in the dusty streets. It was not perfect. There were misunderstandings and arguments and cultural clashes, but it was peace, and peace was precious. Had been stationed at New for 8 months. He was 29 years old, the son of farmers from a small town on Earth that no longer existed. He had joined the military because he had nothing else, and he had stayed because he had found something worth protecting. He was not a remarkable soldier. His shooting scores were average. His fitness reports were adequate. His commanding officers described him as quiet, reliable, and good with people, especially children. Every evening after his shift ended would walk to the open field at the center of the settlement. Human children and children would be waiting for him there, and he would teach them how to play soccer. It had started as a joke. The children had too many legs and kept tripping over each other. The human children kept forgetting that their friends could see in almost every direction and could not be surprised by passes from the side. But somehow, they made it work. Somehow, they had fun. Remembered those evenings as the happiest time of his life. On the morning of the attack, he had been eating rice and kimchi from a packet when the first explosion hit. The mess hall shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Alarms began to scream. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside. The sky was full of ships, not the sleek silver vessels of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, but older ships, painted in colors that recognized from briefings. Black and red, the colors of the Purity Movement, the faction that believed in exterminating anyone who cooperated with other species, including their own people. They had found new. The next hours were chaos. Fought alongside his squad trying to protect the civilians, trying to organize an evacuation. But there were too many attackers and not enough defenders. The outpost fell. The settlement burned. His squad was scattered, killed, or captured. Communications went down. Air support never came. By noon was alone. He moved through the ruins of the eastern quarter, searching for survivors. The streets that he had walked every day were now filled with rubble and bodies. He saw humans and lying side by side in death, killed by the same enemy for the same crime of wanting to live in peace. He found the school near sunset. It had been a simple building, just 4 walls and a roof, where human teachers and teachers had worked together to educate all the children of the settlement. Now half of it was collapsed, and the other half was burning. Heard crying. He climbed through the rubble, cutting his hands on broken glass and sharp metal. The crying grew louder. He pushed aside a fallen beam and found a small space beneath a collapsed wall, a pocket of air where something had survived. 2 adults lay dead, their bodies curved protectively around a smaller shape. A child. A cub. She was covered in gray dust and dark blood that was not her own. Her compound eyes were wide with terror. She was making a sound that needed no translation, a sound that meant the same thing in every language in the galaxy. She was crying for her mother. Reached for her slowly, the way he had learned to approach frightened children of any species. He made his body small. He kept his hands visible. He spoke softly. "Hey there," he whispered. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The cub stared at him. She did not know what he was. She had probably never seen a human up close before. He was strange to her, with his soft skin and his 2 small eyes and his flat face. But she was too tired and too scared to run. "I know you're scared," continued. "I'm scared too, but I'm going to help you, okay? Can I pick you up?" The cub did not answer. She just kept crying. Reached into the small space and gathered her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her small claws grabbed his jacket and held on tight. She pressed her face against his chest and kept crying, her whole body shaking with sobs. "I've got you," said. "I've got you." He carried her out of the ruins. He found a place to hide in a basement that had survived the bombing. He cleaned her wounds with water from his canteen. He fed her bits of ration bar, breaking them into pieces small enough for her mouth. When night came and she would not stop crying, he sang to her. He sang the songs his grandmother had sung to him when he was small, songs about mountains and rivers and the moon. She fell asleep in his arms. Looked down at her in the darkness. He did not know her name. He did not know if any of her family had survived. He did not know how he was going to get her to safety when enemies controlled every road and watched every path. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was going to protect her. He thought about what to call her. She needed a name, something he could whisper to her when she woke up crying, something to remind her that she was not alone. He remembered the night sky above his grandmother's farm, filled with stars, and he remembered the Korean word for star. Yes. He whispered to the sleeping child, "Your name is, and I'm going to get you somewhere safe, I promise." For 2 days he carried her through the war zone. He moved at night and hid during the day. He avoided patrols and skirted battles and climbed through ruins that no one else would think to search. He shared his food with her. He shared his water. When she was cold, he wrapped her in his jacket. When she had nightmares, he held her close and told her stories about Earth, about oceans and forests and animals she had never seen. On the third day, they reached the main road that led to the refugee camp. It was the most dangerous route, but it was also the fastest, was getting weaker. She needed real food and medicine and safety, could not wait any longer. He stepped onto the road and started walking. That was when he saw the patrol. 12 soldiers in combat armor standing in a line across the road. They saw him at the same moment. Weapons rose. Orders were shouted. Looked down at. She was awake now, her large eyes staring up at him with complete trust. She did not understand what was happening. She only knew that he had kept her safe for 2 days, and she believed he would keep her safe now. He adjusted his grip on her, holding her close to his chest with his left arm. Then he kept walking. The holographic display in the council chamber showed everything in perfect detail. Every representative could see the dust on the human's face, the blood on his torn uniform, the small shape pressed against his chest. They could see the 12 soldiers forming a line across the road, their weapons raised and ready. And they could see the human keep walking. High Arbiter had lived for over 400 years. She had seen battles and massacres and every kind of violence that intelligent beings could inflict upon each other. But she had never seen anything quite like this. There was something in the human's eyes that made her feathers rise, something old and cold and patient. On the holographic display, the patrol leader spoke again. "Human, this is your final warning. Put down the child and surrender. If you do not comply, we will open fire." The human stopped walking. He was about 30 meters from the line of soldiers now, close enough to see their faces through their helmet visors, close enough to count their weapons, close enough to know that he had no chance. He looked down at. The child's face was hidden against his chest. She was trembling. Her small claws were digging into his jacket so hard that they had torn through the fabric. She did not understand the words being spoken, but she understood the tone. She understood that danger was near. The human whispered. The helmet camera of the patrol leader was sensitive enough to pick up his voice. "I need you to keep your eyes closed. Can you do that for me? Keep your eyes closed and don't let go." The child made a small sound. It might have been agreement, it might have been fear, but her eyes closed and her grip tightened. The human looked up at the soldiers. "You want the child?" he asked. His voice was quiet but clear. "Then you're going to have to take her from me, but I should warn you about something first." The patrol leader's weapon did not waver. "What warning could you possibly give us, human? You are 1, we are 12. You are surrounded, you have no cover, you cannot escape." "I know," the human said. "I'm not trying to escape, I'm trying to get this child to safety. That's all I want. Let us pass and nobody has to die today." "You are in no position to make demands." "I'm not making demands, I'm making an offer." The human's right hand moved slowly to his belt, his fingers wrapped around the handle of his combat knife. "You can let us pass, or you can try to stop me, but if you try to stop me, I want you to understand something." He drew the knife. It was a simple weapon, standard military issue, about 20 centimeters of sharpened steel. Nothing special, nothing remarkable, just a tool for cutting. "I've been protecting this child for 2 days, the human continued. "I've carried her through burning buildings. I've hidden with her in holes in the ground. I've fed her and kept her warm and sung her to sleep when she couldn't stop crying. She trusts me. She believes I'll keep her safe." His grip on the knife tightened. "I will not betray that trust." The patrol leader made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "Brave words from a dead man. You have a knife. We have guns. You have one free hand. We have 12 soldiers. What do you think you can possibly do?" The human smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "I think I can do enough." He started walking again. "Fire!" the patrol leader screamed. The first shot missed. The second shot missed. The human was moving now, not running but walking fast, his body turning to keep his left side toward the soldiers, keeping protected behind the shield of his own flesh. The third shot hit his right shoulder. He did not slow down. The patrol leader was still shouting orders when the human reached him. It happened so fast that the camera barely captured it. One moment the human was 3 meters away. The next moment he was inside the patrol leader's guard, his knife moving in a blur. The blade found the gap between helmet and chest plate, the soft area where armor met armor. The patrol leader fell. The human caught the body and used it as cover against the next volley of shots. 3 rounds hit the dead soldier. 1 round hit the human's right leg. He stumbled but did not fall. His left arm was still wrapped around, holding her tight against his chest, keeping her face pressed into his shoulder so she could not see. 2 more soldiers closed in from the left. The human dropped the body he was holding and moved toward them. His knife hand was a blur of motion. 1 soldier fell with his throat opened. The other fell with the knife buried in his chest. The human pulled the blade free and kept moving. In the council chamber, representatives were watching in stunned silence. Some had covered their eyes. Others were leaning forward, unable to look away. The delegate's fur was standing on end. There was clutching the edges of its water tank with all 8 tentacles. On the display, the human was still fighting. A soldier tried to tackle him from behind. The human twisted, taking the impact on his right side, protecting with his body. The knife came around and found the gap in the soldier's armor beneath the arm. Another soldier grabbed his knife hand. The human headbutted him hard enough to crack his helmet visor, then drove the blade into his throat when he staggered back. 6 soldiers down, 6 remaining. The human was bleeding now. His right arm was soaked in red. His leg was dragging, but his left arm had not moved. His left arm was still holding, still keeping her face pressed against his chest, still protecting her from the violence happening all around her. 3 soldiers attacked at once. The human went low, sweeping the legs out from under the first one, stabbing the second one in the knee, using the falling body of the third one to block a shot from behind. He moved through them like water through rocks, always flowing, never stopping, his knife finding the weak points in their armor again and again. 9 soldiers down, 3 remaining. The last 3 soldiers broke formation and ran. The human did not chase them. He stood in the middle of the road, surrounded by bodies, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Blood dripped from his knife onto the dusty ground. Blood soaked his uniform, but he was alive. And was alive. He looked down at the child in his arms. Her eyes were still closed. Her small body was still trembling, but she was unharmed. Not a single drop of blood had touched her. "It's okay," he whispered. His voice was rough with pain. "It's over. You can open your eyes now, but maybe don't look around, just look at me, okay?" His compound eyes opened slowly. They focused on his face. She did not look at the bodies. She did not look at the blood. She just looked at him, at this strange, soft creature who had carried her through hell and fought an army to keep her safe. "Uncle Dodo," she said. It was the first time she had spoken in 2 days. Her voice was tiny and hoarse. She had created the name herself, her attempt at pronouncing. "Uncle Dodo, you're hurt." "I'm okay," he lied. "Just a few scratches. Come on, we need to keep moving. The refugee camp is close now." He adjusted his grip on her. shifted his weight off his injured leg, and started walking. Behind him, the helmet camera of the fallen patrol leader continued to record. It captured his back as he walked away, captured the way he limped on his wounded leg, captured the way his left arm never loosened its hold on the child. One hand held a cub. The other hand had delivered judgment. The human disappeared over the hill, and the footage ended. The silence in the council chamber lasted for exactly 7 seconds after the footage ended. Then everyone started talking at once. Ambassador's voice rose above the chaos. His compound eyes were bright with triumph. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke, and his translator struggled to keep up with his words. "You see," he shouted. "You all see now, this is what humans are. This is what they have always been. Monsters wearing the faces of civilized beings. Killers who pretend to be peacekeepers. He murdered 12 of our soldiers in cold blood." "He was protecting a child," someone shouted back. The voice came from the section where the younger species sat, the ones who had joined the council in the last few centuries. "He was using a child as a shield." "Did you watch the same footage we did? He took bullets to protect that child." The argument grew louder. Representatives from dozens of worlds were standing now, shouting at each other across the Great Hall. Some were demanding that humanity be expelled from the council. Others were demanding that be censured for wasting the council's time with propaganda. The mechanical voice of the AI collective requested order in 17 different languages simultaneously. High Arbiter raised her hand. She did not shout. She did not need to. Something about the gesture commanded attention. The chamber fell silent and everyone turned to look at her. "We will hear from the human delegation," she announced. "Ambassador, you may speak." A figure rose from the human section of the chamber. Ambassador was a small woman with silver hair and a face full of lines. She was 63 years old, which was young for an ambassador, but old for a human. She had spent her life working for peace between species. She had negotiated treaties and ended conflicts and built bridges across gaps that everyone said could never be crossed. She had also served as a soldier when she was young. She had seen war up close. She knew what it looked like when someone fought because they had to. "High Arbiter," she said, bowing slightly. "Fellow representatives, I thank you for the opportunity to respond." She walked slowly to the center platform, where Still stood. He glared at her with all of his compound eyes, but she did not seem to notice. She simply waited until she had everyone's attention, and then she began to speak. "Ambassador has shown you a video. He has told you what he thinks it means. Now I will tell you what it actually means." She touched a control and the holographic display came back to life. But instead of the combat footage, it showed a still image. A human man sitting on a medical bed, his arm in a sling, bandages wrapped around his leg and shoulder. Beside him sat a small child, her legs dangling off the edge of the bed, her compound eyes fixed on his face. "This is Corporal Park," said. 29 years old, born on Earth in a region called Korea. He joined our peacekeeping forces 6 years ago. His service record is completely unremarkable. Average scores, average evaluations, no special commendations, no disciplinary actions, just a quiet, ordinary soldier doing a difficult job. She touched another control. The image changed to show a group of children playing in a dusty field. Human children and children together, chasing a ball, laughing. This is what Corporal Park did in his free time. Every evening after his shift, he taught the children knew how to play a human game called soccer. Human children and children together. He spent 8 months building trust between two species that had every reason to fear each other. She paused and looked around the chamber. And then the purity movement came. Another image, burning buildings, bodies in the streets, smoke rising into a gray sky. The attack on Nu was not conducted by the legitimate government of the collective. It was conducted by extremists, terrorists, beings who believe that any cooperation between species is a crime worthy of death. They killed humans and alike. They burned a village that had committed the unforgivable sin of living in peace. His voice grew harder. Corporal Park survived the attack. He spent hours searching for survivors, and in the ruins of a school, underneath the bodies of her dead parents, he found a child. A child, a member of the same species that had just destroyed everything he cared about. She looked directly at. He could have left her there. He had no obligation to save her. She was not his responsibility. She was not even his species. By every cold calculation of war, she was a liability, a burden that would slow him down and get him killed. The image changed again. It showed footage from the refugee camp security cameras. A human man stumbling through the gates, covered in blood, barely able to walk. In his arms, he carried a small shape wrapped in his jacket. He carried her for 2 days. He fed her from his own rations. He gave her water from his own canteen. When she could not sleep, he sang to her. He named her, which means star in his language, because he said she was the only light in all that darkness. His voice softened. And when 12 soldiers stood between him and her safety, he fought them. Not because he wanted to kill. Not because he enjoyed violence. Not because humans are monsters. He fought because a little girl was depending on him, and he had promised to keep her safe. She turned to address the full council. You want to know what humanity is? We are the species that will burn ourselves to keep others warm. We are the species that will bleed to protect someone we barely know. We are the species that will name an orphan after a star and carry her through hell because we made a promise. Her eyes swept across the chamber, meeting the gazes of 100 different species. Ambassador has shown you violence. I do not deny it. Corporal Park killed 12 soldiers in 14 seconds. That is a fact. But Ambassador has not shown you what came before. He has not shown you the 2 days of care and tenderness and sacrifice. He has not shown you a man singing lullabies to a frightened child. He has not shown you humanity's true nature. She pointed at the frozen image of, and sitting together on the medical bed. This is what humanity is. A soldier who should hate sitting with a child on his lap. A warrior who killed 12 of your people, spending his recovery time making sure she eats and sleeps and knows that she is loved. That little girl calls him Uncle Dodo. She made up the name herself, and he answers to it with a smile. Stepped back from the platform. Condemn us if you must, fear us if you will, but do not pretend that you do not understand what you saw in that footage. A human being fought with one hand because his other hand was busy holding hope. And if that is monstrous, then I do not know what goodness looks like. She returned to her seat. The chamber was silent. High Arbiter sat very still for a long moment. Her yellow eyes were distant, as if she was seeing something far away or long ago. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. We will take a recess. The council will reconvene in 1 hour to render judgment. She rose from her seat and walked slowly out of the chamber. Behind her, stared at the frozen image on the holographic display. The human with bandages and the child with compound eyes. They were looking at each other, and even across the vast distances of biology and evolution and culture, anyone could see what was in their faces. Trust, love, family. His mandibles clicked quietly. He was beginning to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. 1 hour passed. The representatives filed back into the council chamber. The seats filled slowly, species arranging themselves by alliance and tradition and old friendships. The noise of conversation was quieter than before. Something had changed in the air. Something had shifted. High Arbiter took her place at the head of the chamber. She looked older than she had that morning. The silver feathers around her face seemed duller, and her yellow eyes held a weight that had not been there before. Before I render the council's judgment, she said, I wish to present additional evidence. Ambassador, Do I have your permission to share communication records from the refugee camp on 7? Ambassador rose from her seat. You have our permission, High Arbiter. Touched a control. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a video feed. The image quality was poor, captured by a handheld device rather than professional equipment. It showed the interior of a medical tent, rows of beds, patients of multiple species being treated by doctors and nurses. In one corner of the tent, a familiar figure sat in a chair beside a small bed. Corporal Park was there, his wounded arm still in a sling, his leg wrapped in bandages. On the bed beside him, a small figure was sleeping peacefully. An old female was approaching him. Her body was bent with age, and her compound eyes had faded to a dull gray. She moved slowly, carefully, as if every step cost her something. Looked up as she approached. He started to rise, but she waved him back down with one thin limb. You are the one, she said. The translator rendered her voice as thin and cracked. You are the one who saved my grandchild. I just did what anyone would do, replied. The old made a sound that the translator could not interpret. It might have been a laugh. It might have been a sob. No, she said, not anyone. I have lived for many years. I have seen much. I have seen my people kill yours and yours kill mine. I have seen hatred and fear and violence without end. In all my years, I have never seen what you did. She reached out with one trembling limb and touched his face. It was a gesture of deep respect among the, reserved for family members and heroes. My daughter and her mate are dead, murdered by our own kind for the crime of wanting peace. I thought I had lost everything. I thought my grandchild was dead too. Her voice broke. And then you came, a human, a stranger. You carried her through fire and darkness. You fought an army for her. You brought her back to me. His eyes were wet. He blinked rapidly, trying to clear them. She's a good kid, he said. His voice was rough. She's brave. She held on so tight the whole time. She trusted me even though she didn't know me. I couldn't let her down. The old leaned closer. Her compound eyes studied his face with an intensity that seemed to see through skin and bone to something deeper. Among my people, she said, we have a tradition. When someone saves a life, they become bound to that life. They become family, not by blood but by something stronger, by choice, by sacrifice. She placed her thin limb over his heart. You are family now, Park. You are my grandchild's family. You saved her life, and that debt can never be repaid, but it can be honored. On the bed, Little stirred. Her compound eyes opened slowly, blinking in the light. She saw and smiled. Uncle Dodo, she said sleepily, you're still here. I'm still here, he replied. I told you I wasn't going anywhere. Looked at her grandmother, then she looked back at. Her small face showed confusion. Grandmother, she said, why are you crying? The old reached down and stroked her grandchild's head. I am crying because I am happy, little one. I am crying because I thought I had lost you, and instead I found you with a protector, a guardian, she looked at, a family member. The footage ended. The council chamber was silent. High Arbiter rose from her seat. Her voice was steady but heavy with emotion. I have been the High Arbiter of this council for 90 years. In that time, I have rendered judgment on wars and treaties, on crimes and heroics, on the rise and fall of civilizations. I have learned that the galaxy is vast and complicated and rarely simple. She looked out at the assembled representatives. Ambassador brought us footage of violence. He claimed it proved that humans are dangerous. He claimed it proved that humans are monstrous. She paused. He was half right. His compound eyes widened. For a moment, hope flickered in his expression. Humans are dangerous, continued. Corporal Park killed 12 trained soldiers in 14 seconds with one hand while protecting a child. I have seen warriors from 100 species, and I have never seen anything quite like that. If humans can do that, then yes, they are dangerous beyond measure. The hope in his eyes grew brighter. But danger is not evil. Fire is dangerous. Water is dangerous. Love is dangerous. His voice grew stronger. What we saw in that footage was not a monster. What we saw was a human being pushed to the absolute limit of their capabilities, not by rage or hatred, but by devotion, by protection, by love. She turned to face directly. You asked us to condemn humanity for violence, but you showed us violence in service of innocence. You showed us a warrior who could have fought with both hands but chose to fight with one because the other was busy cradling hope. You showed us exactly what makes humans terrifying, and it is not their capacity for destruction. Her yellow eyes blazed. It is their capacity for care. She raised her hand, signaling the formal verdict. The Council finds no grounds for censure against humanity. The actions of Corporal Park were defensive in nature, undertaken to protect an innocent child from armed combatants. The Council notes that the patrol in question made no attempt to render aid and instead threatened both the human and the child he was protecting. His mandibles clicked in protest, but continued without pause. Furthermore, the Council recommends that Corporal Park be awarded the Galactic Humanitarian Medal for exceptional courage and compassion in the face of overwhelming odds. He will be only the third human to receive this honor, and the first to receive it for actions taken on behalf of a non-human child. She lowered her hand. Let the record show that today, this Council learned something important about humanity. We learned that humans do not fight hardest when they are angry. They do not fight hardest when they are afraid. They fight hardest when they have something precious to protect. And when a human chooses to protect you, they will walk through fire and blood and death to keep you safe. Her ancient voice softened to something almost gentle. I am 400 years old. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve from savagery to civilization. And I tell you now, with all the wisdom of my years, there is nothing more dangerous in this galaxy than a human being who has decided to love you. Nothing more terrifying, and nothing more beautiful. The gavel fell. The session ended. The representatives began to file out of the chamber, speaking in quiet voices, thinking about what they had seen and heard. Ambassador remained at his platform for a long moment, staring at the empty holographic display. Then he turned and walked slowly toward the exit. As he passed the human delegation, he paused. Ambassador looked up at him. Her face showed no triumph, no satisfaction, just patience. You could have won, she said quietly. If you had shown different footage, if you had found a human doing something cruel rather than something protective. Humans are capable of terrible things. You could have found evidence of that. His mandibles clicked softly. Yes, he admitted, but I wanted to show the most dramatic footage, the most impressive, I thought. I thought your capacity for violence would speak for itself. Smiled, it was a sad smile, full of understanding. You forgot something important about humans, Ambassador. We are not ashamed of being dangerous. We are not ashamed of being capable of violence, because we know why we have those capabilities. She gestured toward the door, toward the galaxy beyond. We are dangerous because we love. We are violent because we protect. Every weapon we build, every soldier we train, every battle we fight. It is all for the same reason, to keep our families safe, to keep our children safe, to keep hope alive in a universe that often seems determined to destroy it. She rose from her seat and gathered her materials. And now, thanks to you, the entire galaxy knows it. They know that when a human holds your child, they will burn worlds to protect them. They know that our violence is not random or senseless. It is specific and precise, and aimed at anyone who threatens what we love. She walked past toward the exit, then paused and looked back. You wanted to make the galaxy fear us, Ambassador. Congratulations. You succeeded. But you also did something else. You showed them that humans are worth having as friends. because the same species that will kill 12 soldiers with one hand will also spend 2 days singing lullabies to a frightened child. She left the chamber, stood alone in the great hall, surrounded by empty seats, thinking about humans and children and the strange, terrible beauty of love. Far away on a refugee camp on Seven, a human soldier was teaching a small child how to kick a soccer ball. She was terrible at it. Her many legs kept getting tangled. But she was laughing, and he was laughing with her, and somewhere across the galaxy, a video was spreading from world to world. One hand held a cub. The other hand delivered judgment. And the universe was learning to respect both.